Hi guys, this is Dr. Cheryl Schmitt from Vital Chiropractic. Thank you for joining us again this Monday for our Talk and Tea with your wellness experts. Today I have a gentleman with me. This is Jay Rodriguez. Jay is here to talk to us about different genders doing birth work, because sometimes we don't see a lot of men doing births and birth work and birth education. He's a doula and birth educator, and he's been doing this for a year and a half or so. So Jay, you want to tell people a little bit about yourself, where you come from, a little bit about your credentials, and we'll get started.
Sure. First off, thank you for having me on your show.
You're welcome.
So my name is Jared Rodriguez. I'm a birth and postpartum doula, in addition to being a childbirth educator. I work primarily in the South Sound, so Tacoma to about South Seattle. I've been doing that for about a year and a half now, with just about 9 births under my belt, and I've worked with several families postpartum as well. And in addition to all of that work, I'm also a full-time paramedic in the city of Tacoma. The company I work with runs 911 there in Tacoma, and we do about, I'd say, 80 to 85% of the 911 EMS transfers there in Tacoma. I've been doing EMS for about 14 years. As far as my background, I do come from a very medical family. I grew up in a family of doctors. My father's a general surgeon, so I was doing rounds with him when I was very young. Saw my first surgical case, an appendectomy, about 8. And I grew up in and around medicine, fascinated by the human body and how to take care of people and medicine and helping people. And so, yeah, I generally just kind of progressed into EMS. And then about 2 years ago, when I was working on a bachelor's degree in EMS, I interviewed a male OB and a female midwife. And I asked them pretty much the same questions, but the one question I was really interested in is, did they think there was a gender bias in, OBGYN and women's medicine? The male OB's take on it was, well, I'm a male OB. If they don't want to see me, there's 500 other OBs they can go and see. That's fine. The midwife, on the other hand, her take on it was a lot more simple, but it really kind of influenced kind of my pathway. And her take on it was, I don't care what gender you are, as long as you can do the job and do the job well. In the end, that's all that should matter. And that's kind of what got me started in birth work. Was that simple quote right there. I've always kind of been fascinated by pregnancy and birth and that whole end of medicine, but because of the fact that I'm male up until that point, I really didn't think it was necessarily feasible because of my gender. And so after she told me that, I started talking with some friends, started talking with my wife, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make a go at this and see how I do. And so, yeah, October of 2016, I started my journey as a doula, and I'm going strong to this day.
Cool. So I know that there's not a lot of male doulas or male midwives. How many are there in this area or in Washington State?
That I know of personally, I know you had mentioned one that's up near you, and so that makes a total of 4. Because I kind of work Tacoma up into South Seattle. There's one very well-known male doula in Seattle, and then there's a husband and wife team down in Olympia that I know of.
Cool. So there's not a whole lot of you. Do you guys get together and share stories?
I've actually met the doula that's in Seattle. His name is Jessup Coffin. I've met him personally. Very, very nice guy. And yeah, when we got together, we kind of talked out some different things. And I was still kind of a emerging doula at that time, so he was nice enough to kind of share with me some of his wisdom as being a more experienced doula. Yeah. And then with the husband and wife team out of Olympia, I've talked with them over Facebook a few times.
Yeah, I know that up here we have David he's affectionately called Doula David. I know him pretty well. He's actually done some, he did some placenta encapsulation for me, and he's helping to teach at a midwifery school now, and I go in and help to teach a class with him pretty much every year. And I think when I first was introduced to him, it was kind of like, oh, I never even thought of that. Like, I wonder what challenges he has being a male doula, because most people would automatically think of a doula or a support person as that female gender role. So what are some of the challenges that you guys come across in this profession?
I think kind of the biggest one you hit directly on the head is the fact that, number one, I think kind of the doula profession is kind of more associated with being female. And so therefore it's kind of more difficult for us of the male persuasion, I guess you could say, to kind of break into this work, to kind of start to get clients and that kind of thing. And, you know, it's one of those to where even the medical profession, because I do some volunteer work as well as a doula, I think even in the medical profession, when you're first starting out, they're not really sure kind of what to think of you, kind of how to work with you or that kind of thing. But again, I go back to kind of what that midwife told me of, you know, it doesn't matter what gender you are as long as you can do the job well. And that's kind of what I've stuck by. And there's some common misconceptions being male that I've had to work with. For example, that in the birth room, that as a male doula, my job is to take the place of dad. And that's absolutely not true. I work just as well with dads as I do with moms, and I can be as hands-on or as hands-off as they need me to be. You know, in a lot of ways, I've gotten some positive feedbacks from the dads in particular, because the fact that they felt like they were kind of able to relate a little bit better to me than maybe they would have been with the female doula.
Well, yeah, I can see that.
And then another issue that sometimes comes up is with nudity, or with, you know, being undressed in front of, you know, a male that they don't know, that may not be their husband. And I would imagine as a female doula, that wouldn't necessarily be as big of an issue. But that is something I'm very, very upfront with my clients about from the first time that I meet them. And we kind of discuss that very openly. And because of all my medical training and my medical background, a lot of the clients I've had kind of look at it more from the perspective of, well, you're a trained medical professional. You've seen this before. It's not. And so that kind of gives them a little bit of comfort in that perspective.
Yeah, I would imagine that having your medical background does help that a ton, because I'm sure some people, I mean, they see an OBGYN a lot of times as male and no one even thinks twice about it. Mm-hmm. And I mean, when I was born, I don't know if there was any female OBGYNs in my area. I lived in a smaller community. There's getting more and more now, but when it comes to someone who's in the medical community, like a medical doctor, they don't think about it nearly as much. Because they see the professionalism. So I would see you have a heads up on that one with some other doulas that maybe don't have that background. So they probably deal with that even a little bit more. And with me, I'm a chiropractor. And so for years, it's getting better now. There's many more females who are practicing, but for a long time, and still to this day, I'll have people come in and say that I'm the only female chiropractor they either know of or have ever been to. And so I can understand how it can be a challenge at times, having people see you in that role. But once you show them that you know what you're doing and you explain to them that, you know, you're going to be treating them just like the other gender as far as their care, then it really breaks down some walls. And we just recently hired another male chiropractor. My husband's in this office. We hired another gentleman who his focus is on pregnancy and pediatrics. And that's actually fairly rare in chiropractic. for that focus. Most of the people who focus on pregnancy and pediatrics are female. And I've already heard some things that he's said that I never had to really think about or was unaware of the challenges he goes through. So it's interesting when you just stick a gender in there, how much things can really change.
Sure.
In challenges and in strengths as well. So, tell me why you really wanted to get into birth work specifically. Well,
I think it's for one thing, I've always kind of been fascinated about pregnancy and birth, and watching a new life come into the world. It's no matter how many times you see it, it's still amazing. It's still awesome. And for me, it's one of those to where if you're going to do something that you love to do something that inspires you, do something that gets you up in the morning. And for me, being able to work with and help pregnant women, birthing women, postpartum women, getting to be there for those major life events is something that gets me up in the morning. It's something I love to do, and it never gets old. Every birth that I go to, when I'm walking out of that hospital or that birth center, the client may not see it, but I'm sitting there doing a little happy dance of like, this was so awesome. I can't believe I just got to see that, and honestly, I hope that's something that never goes away, no matter how long I'm in this profession, that I never lose that feeling.
Yeah, I mean, birth is amazing. And why, because you're a man, why would you feel any differently about birth than a woman? Because women get into this profession for the same reason, to help people, to make them safe, to have them feel empowered in their birth, and to see a new life come into this world is like, what's better other than chiropractic? It's pretty cool too.
Yeah.
So that's why the reason I love working with this clientele too, because it's such an amazing time in their life, amazing transition to motherhood and a new baby. And I think if you can do things to help ease labor and delivery and make it a smooth process, a smooth transition, you can actually set up somebody's life trajectory in a healthier and better way. Because people who have more interventions in their birth and just things that don't go so well, then you'll see later on in life they can have health issues from pregnancy and birth.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do you think your unique strengths are in the services that you provide? I know we talked about having your background in medical background at EMT. Do you think people seek you out because you have that, and they think that, like, if someone wants to have a home birth or a birth center birth, but maybe is a little afraid of not having all the technology or the skilled people in emergency medicine, I would imagine that some of those people would feel much more comfortable being at home or in a birth center because of your experience and your background and your knowledge there. What other strengths do you think that you bring to moms and dads?
Well, I think one of the biggest strengths I bring is my medical background and my knowledge, specifically with women that are more high risk, that have more complicated pregnancies, that may be going for a VBAC after multiple cesareans, or, and they may have had a very bad experience with their past birth. I recently, back in October, I went to a cesarean and a VBAC awareness support group, and listening to some of the stories that these women were mentioning about how they were kind of being forced into certain things, or, they were told this is how it's going to happen, you don't have any choice in the matter, was honestly kind of shocking to me. And for several of my past clients, they've been people that have had bad experiences within the hospital. So they hired me specifically for my medical knowledge, my medical information, so that when those things come up, they can say, well, what do you think about this? why are they doing this? Why is this happening? And I can kind of sit there and translate the medicalese for them, or here's why the OB may be doing this, or here's why this needs to happen, kind of deal. And that's actually put them significantly at ease. For two of them, it was probably the gentlest, most stress-free births that they've had because of that, because they had somebody that was willing to advocate for them, willing to help them out and explain some things that maybe the doctor or the nurse or the midwife didn't have time to explain to them. As far as out of the hospital, yeah, it's I would imagine as a paramedic, it would put a lot of people at ease, the fact that they would have somebody there. Now, I will caution, though, that when I'm functioning as a doula, I'm not there as a hands-on medical provider. Yeah. I'm there as their support person, as somebody that can help them, get through some of those challenges, or explain some things to them, if they need to. But very rarely will I, in a doula capacity, take off the doula hat, put on the paramedic hat, particularly because if this is a birth that's out of Pierce County, I can't even function as a paramedic. Yeah. But yeah, hopefully that answered the question for you.
No, absolutely. I was going to ask too about that, because I'm sure that you have to keep them separate. You have to keep your doula work separate from your, paramedic work, and you can't be mixing the two, or you can get yourself into some sticky situations. Definitely. And I know that you mentioned before with the dads, because I had doulas, but they were female doulas. And I could tell that sometimes my husband felt like, I'll just leave the women in the room there. I'll just let the women do their thing. So I'm sure having another male as yourself can make the dads feel like they can be more included and that they are welcome in the space.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think that's a really great, unique strength that having a male doula could bring.
Absolutely. I actually had a prior client to where her significant other in her prior birth, he just kind of stood over there in the corner, kind of watched things happen. He really didn't get involved. And when she hired me, that was one of her big requests is, I want you to help get him involved. And so when it came time for her to deliver, I did everything in my power to get him involved. And he was, sitting there doing counter pressure with me. He was helping her get into different positions. When it came time to push, he was holding one leg and helping coach her. There were a couple of times where, as a doula, I myself just kind of stepped back and let him kind of take the reins. And and after the delivery, she was like, thank you so much, because he was never that involved last time. And because of you, he was a lot more involved.
Yeah. And as a good doula should do, you step in when you need to step in, or they're wanting you to, but you always also step back when they want you to step back, and knowing sometimes they don't always tell you, right?
Exactly.
You have to kind of know when to do that. Megan just got on there and said, that's great. That's awesome that you can do that for dads, because like I said, my husband definitely was like, whoa, there's a lot of female going on in that room. So yeah, having that is incredible. I was going to ask you, like, what is your ideal client? Like, what kind of clients do you like to reach out to and work with? Like, if you could pick a list of things, what's your favorite person?
That's a very good question. Just based off the clients that I have had, a lot of them tend to either be people that have never used a doula before or have literally no idea what a doula is. But recently I've started to get a lot of clients that are more medically complicated. Like, for example, I've had a client that was going for a VBAC after 3 cesareans. Another one was going for after 4 cesareans. And so I guess if I were to categorize it, kind of my most ideal client would be somebody that's A, open to using a male doula, obviously, but B, somebody that just wanting to use a doula to achieve their best birth. I wouldn't necessarily say it's more medically complicated or the routine. I just would say it's whatever client wants to hire a male doula and is open to having their best birth, I guess.
Yeah. I think that's what we all want are people who want to work with us, obviously, to begin with, and who trust us and are looking to be empowered and have a good experience, whether it's birth or just healthcare in general. So I think you mentioned in your bio that you might want to do something else in the future too. You might go into be a midwife in the future.
Yes, actually, I'm in the process of applying to midwifery schools to become a CPM, so basically a home birth or a birth center midwife. And that's something I'm really looking forward to. And initially, when I interviewed that midwife way back when I was doing that assignment, that was the original goal, was to go into midwifery. But at the time, my wife, who's working on a graduate in her master's in Middle Eastern Studies up at UW, we were in the process of moving up here. And for me to kind of commit to that kind of work, I wouldn't be able to have a full-time job. And with her being a full-time student, it just wasn't the right time to achieve that. So I started looking into midwifery schools, and one of the very common things that they had was they wanted some birth experience, some birth work, either as a childbirth educator, as a doula. And so I said, you know what, this is something I can do and maintain a full-time job and get enough experience under my belt so that when I do start to apply to midwifery schools, I can have something I can put down on the resume. But this has honestly grown into something that even after I become a midwife, I want to continue doing this in addition to the education work. So in the thought process of that being, well, if they don't want to hire me as a midwife, they can hire me as a doula. If they don't want to hire me as a midwife or a doula, they can hire me as their educator. And way down the road, eventually open up kind of a one-stop shop to where it's a birth center that, offers doula services as well as educational services, kind of a one-stop shop.
How many midwives are there that are male that you know of?
CPMs, to be honest with you, I don't know if I know of any. I've heard of one male nurse midwife in this area, but that's about it.
I think I've heard of a couple at least nationwide. So you're blazing a trail.
Thank you.
That's awesome. I mean, I think part of having equal rights is having equal rights. Like these, women can do jobs that are typically male dominated and men can do jobs that are typically women dominated. And I think I love to support you in doing that and blazing the trail for other male doulas and childbirth educators and midwives. Because like that midwife said, as long as you are doing the job well, gender doesn't really matter. It doesn't. So your company right now is the Great Northwest Doula Service. And right now you're doing doula work and childbirth educating through that. And you're doing both postpartum and birth doula work, right?
Correct.
Do you do postpartum work with most of the birth work that you're doing? Do you do both, or are you doing separate families?
I offer it to every client that I have. I offer both services. With a lot of the clients, I've recently been getting their kind of more experienced moms, so they don't necessarily need the postpartum into things, though I clearly offer that. Though I will say with the postpartum work, it's not just for first-time moms. I've worked with moms that have several kids, and I've worked with first-time moms. It kind of runs the gamut on that end. And the other interesting thing with the postpartum work is the fact that, as a birth doula, it's a little bit more linear of these are things I can help you with, during labor, during birth, different things that I can help you with. With postpartum, it's what can I do to make your life easier? That there's not specific, things that, check marks you have to meet. It's, do you need me to cook a meal for you one day, or, maybe help take care of the baby, or, are you needing some breastfeeding help, or are you need me to kind of wrangle your other kids while you just kind of spend some time with baby, So it kind of runs the gamut. But yes, I do offer all of those. And in addition to childbirth education, I also do first aid and CPR training as well through the Great Northwest Doula Service. And again, those are all things I offer to the clients when I first meet with them and they sign on with me. And I try to put together a package that works for them, whether that's, birth and postpartum, or, they want birth and some CBE, or, I kind of tailor that to each individual client when I meet with them.
Yeah, and it's awesome. You're offering a lot of things. So Frida said in here, so in addition to being an educator, Jay, you also are an advocate for your client, which it sounds like, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm absolutely an advocate, and it's one of the biggest things I try and do for each client that hires me, particularly after, like I said, going to that support group. It became even clearer how necessary having an advocate, particularly in a hospital birth, is to make sure that, your birth plan is followed, or that you don't wind up in a situation where, well, the nurse is telling you have to do this, but in actuality, you can really refuse that if you should choose to do that. Or they go to a doctor's office and, oh, well, the doctor found this and he's not really sure about this and it's kind of freaked me out. What do you think? And I can sit there and, well, here's why they're doing it, or here's what they're looking at, kind of deal. And here's what your options are in that situation, kind of deal.
Awesome. So I know that there's some great chiropractors down in your area. So Chris asked, what is your experience, or if you had any so far, working with chiropractors at births or shortly after births?
Well, I have not worked directly with the chiropractor. I have given a talk to a chiropractor down in Auburn, where I live, who was very interested in pregnancy and birth, to the point of he invited, it was myself and another doula and a midwife to come and talk to some of his pregnant clients on the benefits of using a midwife, using a doula, that kind of stuff. Not sure if you're familiar with them, but it's a Coffee Chiropractic.
I've heard of the name, but I don't know them. It's a little further south for me to know all those chiropractors down there. But yeah, there's some great ones down there. I know that. Yeah, we try working with all birth providers to try to make sure that moms have the best birth that they possibly can have. So we work a lot with doulas and midwives in this area. So I think that's awesome that you guys are getting together and sharing this information, because we all want healthy moms and healthy babies.
Absolutely.
So do you have any final thoughts, anything you want to share that we didn't chat about?
Well, first off, again, thank you for allowing on your show.
You're welcome.
And I think it's great kind of what you're doing, kind of inviting on doulas and people that work, in a variety of different settings for better health, not just in the pregnancy realm, but in total general health. I think that's absolutely awesome. I am currently looking for clients. If anybody should, need a doula, they can contact me through the Great Northwest Doula Facebook page or through my website, or they can email me, thegreatnorthwestdoula@yahoo.com. And while I may do postpartum work and birth work in the South Sound, kind of from Tacoma to South King County, with the education portion of it, first aid, CPR, childbirth education, I do travel. So I have no problem going north to Seattle or south to Tacoma if I have somebody that's wanting the kinds of courses. And like I said earlier, I'm willing to work kind of with anybody that wants to work with me. I can tailor a CBE class to you. I can, give you advice. I've even long distance doula on a couple of occasions where I've talked to people through some different things on Facebook as well. So yeah, I'm open and willing to meet with y'all guys if you're needing a doula.
Cool. Yeah, it's all about spreading information and empowering people so they can make the appropriate decisions for themselves in their health and wellness and pregnancies and beyond. So I think that's awesome. Oh, and I wanted to go back to talking about postpartum doula real quick. And I think I probably needed a postpartum doula more with my fourth baby than I did with my first baby. And part of that's because I need someone to help me with all these children that were running around. So yeah, having a postpartum doula, doesn't matter if it's your first, second, third, fourth, 10th child, always can have help and someone there to do things and support you in that postpartum period. So Thank you very much, Jay. I will put the links to your website and your Facebook page in the comments on this thread so that everyone can get in contact with you. It's also already on my Facebook page under the event. And if you guys are new to our page, you're welcome to like Vital Chiropractic. We do a talk every Monday at 1:30 Pacific Standard Time. So come on over and chit chat and share with us. And I would love that. So thank you very much, Jay. And we will keep in touch and keep up the good work, and good luck with your midwifery future.
Thank you very much, and best of luck with your chiropractic as well.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.